Janice and I are so excited that you are joining us for another video in the Unbridled Excellence series. And today's topic is something that, of course, we're very, very passionate about, and that is a client-centered approach. So when we talk about client-centered approach, this is where the session is geared to exactly where the client is that day. Now, there are other programs and other methodologies and other ways of thinking that go through a series of outlined agendas and different topics each are designed to be addressed each specific session. And the way that we work and the way that we felt was more organic for us in our own sessions, and the way that we wanted to teach this program is to really show up, see where the client is that day, and specifically design and hold a session that speaks to where that client is, what the client needs, the experience that needs to happen with the client during that day. And I'm going to let Janice maybe talk a little bit more about that client-centered approach and explain to you kind of what we mean when we talk about that.
You know, it's really important that the focus is on the client and not on our specific or the coach's specific agenda, right? What we found, like Diana said, is some of the other programs, you know, on day one, working with a client that might work on herd behavior or boundaries or something like that. And going through the Freedom Way, you're really taught to be intuitive and really focus on the client and understanding what it is that they need. Clients may come to you wanting to work on something specific. It may be trauma or an event, or moving through something, you know, maybe they're starting something new in their life. So really kind of finding out what that is, but at the same time, have the willingness to let the session flow where it needs to flow, right? Truly focusing on, or sometimes not focusing on something specific, unless that's what the client wants, right? If the horse decides the client needs to work on boundaries or something like that, just the willingness and that intuitiveness to allow that to happen. And that's really what this is all about. It's strictly for the client, not with any specific outcomes that we have in mind, and learning to let go of that.
And that's where the transformations and the breakthroughs and the ahas and the tears and the laughter and the wows, you know, all of those things come to be when you can specifically address where the client is at that point. And Janice was talking about, you know, the client may show up with something particular in mind. And as a coach, I find my sessions, and Janice shares the same thing, and we see this happen time and time again with our students within the class, is that when you empower the client to show up as they are, to, you know, they might address on something they want to work on, but when the client is free to, I'm just going to call it meander, right? You may start at point A, but then as that interaction with the horse begins to take place, you're going to find yourself shifting over to a side topic over here, and then maybe drifting back over here, just depending on what is going on with the client. And maybe a great way to explain that is that a lot of times I'll have clients showing up. You know, I work with women in empowerment and transformation and stepping into that next stage of their life. And so a lot of times women come in and they want to learn about courage, or they want to learn about, you know, figure out different aspects of who they want to transform into. And so we'll come in with that intent. But a lot of times, particularly with my first session, one of the things that often comes up is fear. When you put someone next to a 1,000-pound horse that is not tied up or in any particular way is at liberty, which means there's no tack, there's no halter, there's nothing. Sometimes that brings up a little fear, right? Because they're standing next to this animal who's free to act and think and behave all on their own. The beautiful part of that with a client-centered approach is that then we can move into that space of fear, work through that particular experience that they're having, and it always has a direct application to where they're going. So it's not that you are not making progress and you're kind of all over the map, the client has a direct reason they are coming to you. And when you can empower them to show up as they are, to address things as they come up with you and the horse within that session, the transformation is deeper. They get so much more experience through that session that they can now go back out into life and apply. And I find that when my clients come in and they are empowered to be a pivotal part of the session, making decisions, having emotions, having feelings, saying whatever comes to mind unfiltered, that's where we get to really the truth and the depth of what that next step is that they're working through that way. So this again talks to why for us at the Freedom Way, a client-centered approach is key to every single session, allowing the client to show up as they are.
I love that you said that, Diana. And I want to share a real quick story that pertains to just that. It was an experience that I had yesterday. I think we mentioned before, Diana and I both work at a men's residential treatment center. And I was working with, there was six men yesterday. And we did bring in a little exercise, and I had them create a space out of some props, cones, and stuff like that represented their addiction, and another space that represented their recovery. And they had to lead the horse from the addiction into the recovery. And one of the gentlemen has never been around horses before, and he was in that place of fear, right? Usually that session brings some amazing things about, they talk about their journey, what it meant to them. And this client was really stuck on the fear piece of it. And it was amazing because he thought he had fear around the horses, right? And what happened when he was explaining his journey to us, his sobriety part, he had placed a little single vinyl spot in the middle of a bunch of cones. It was in the middle of one, hula hoop, and then there were some hula hoops on the ground around it. And what he realized when he stood in that middle of the hoop on his little single dot representing himself, he realized his fear wasn't from the horse. His fear was from his sobriety. He was in fear about his sobriety journey. And so really being able to turn it back into that client-centered approach. All of the other guys circled this young man, and I invited him to just breathe. So there wasn't any agenda left to the rest of the session, allowing it to go where it needed to go and focusing really on what this client needed. It was incredible because as he was able to breathe, the tears started falling down. I'm getting goosebumps right now because it feels like I'm still there. One of the clients reached over and put his hand on his shoulder, and it just so happened that he had enough of the hoops down that we each stood in one hoop and circled this client. And as he was able to breathe, you could feel his body soften, and he leaned into the fear, and he was able to work through it. And it totally changed how he was viewing the fear, right? So that's just kind of an example of what it looks like when you really focus on what the client needs, and you can use your intuition and allow it just to happen and unfold organically. It was beautiful. He must have said thank you. He apologized to the other guys for hogging the session, but it was meant for them to be a part of the support network for him too, right? So everybody got exactly the message and the healing that they needed to out of the session. So it's beautiful when you can really allow yourself to give the client the space for whatever the client needs. That's why Diana and I love.
Absolutely. There's those are always the best sessions. And so honestly, a lot of our students, when you're learning something like, well, how do I know what the client needs? How do I facilitate that? How do I show up in my best coaching role as a supporter to lead and guide that. And we're talking about all those other elements in this series that come together that help you do that. And that's why all of these things that we're talking about in this Unbridled Excellence series come together. They're very key. They link together and they help create this session. So when we talk about holistic coaching, when we talk about intuition, empathy, energy, when we talk about the horse as a sentient being filled with feelings and emotions, and all of these things come together, that's what we teach in the Freedom Way. And that's how you customize that session for your client. It doesn't take a lot of planning. It doesn't take a lot of quick thinking on your feet. When you have all of this knowledge and all of this foundation that you're standing on, you come into the session, you might breathe. We always encourage breathing. And by using all of these other tools and all of these other things, you know instinctively where to take that session. So a lot of times too, this is where, as students learning something new, this is where we go through our own fear, right? This is where we go through letting go and trusting. And so we guide you through this space, because that letting go and trusting and following the intuition and following the horse without an agenda is a really magical space. And it's an easy space to coach from. So that's how all of these elements come together to help you create that customized session for your client.
And it's always beautiful to witness those experiences within people. Diane and I both will use the term magical, because that's what it truly is. It's truly magical when you can sit there and watch somebody shift through something, right? He was in a totally different space this morning when I went, just because from that experience yesterday, as well as the other clients being a part of it. So we're so excited to have you guys on this journey with us.
And Janice was really speaking to that lasting change, that when we focus specifically on the energy and what is needed in that space, whether it's for an individual or whether it's for a group, that's where you really create that lasting change, because you're speaking directly to the client, you're speaking to their heart, you're speaking to their soul, you're allowing them to experience that in either that wounded place or that new place that, if they're looking for, if they're having an empowerment or a growth experience in that. Sometimes not all sessions are based on a wound. Sometimes sessions are based on that empowerment and taking back your power and understanding aspects of yourself that you've never fully stepped into before. And so when you can speak to those two things within a client, wherever they're at on that scale, you got it. And this work becomes easy. So just real quickly, I really want to go back and really emphasize the key points of creating a client-centered session. First off, it speaks directly to where your client's at. It's what they need at the moment. It's kind of like going to a buffet and you have all these options out in front of you, but you're really craving the pizza or the mashed potatoes or whatever. It's about lunchtime, so I'm hungry apparently. But those are the things that that you're drawn to, and those are the things that become important, and everything else falls by the wayside. But yet, if somebody else is trying to have you start with dessert first or something like that, it doesn't feel quite right. So that's kind of a bizarre example, but creating this custom client session is so pivotal to the transformation, to the healing work that happens. So as we go through this, like I said, there's so much behind this that supports this client-centered approach. And our level 1 course talks greatly in depth about that. We spend a lot of time. So the level 1 course, we've explained it in a couple of videos. I'll just give you a brief overlook here. It's a 4-month course. A lot of this is online videos, online Zoom meetings. So a lot of this you can do from wherever you're at in the world. You can join in and learn all the information. Then we also bring you together about the 10th week into the class for a 1-week live retreat, where we bring all of this information that you've been learning and give you the opportunity to begin to practice hands-on with this. So it's not just concepts in your head. You now get to make this a full body experience, and you get to not only learn for yourself and feel for yourself and do your own personal growth, like we've talked about, but you also, by the end of the week, are guiding clients through these sessions yourself, so that after the retreat, you're ready to move on to your case studies, you're ready to move on to the business portion of creating your business and hit the ground running by the time certification's over. So that's a 4-month class. And if you go out to the website, you can see more, you can read more specifically about what the course entails. And if you have any questions, of course, you can reach out to us anytime. Now, here's the part we're really excited about, because there's a short window for this. Our next level 1 class begins on February 7th, 2024. And it's going to come very quick. What Janice and I are offering for those who sign up and register by January 15th. So you've got a little bit of time, but by January 15th, you're going to get these extra 2 bonuses that are really going to complement and enhance the course that you're taking. The first bonus is a 1-year subscription to the Freedom Way Book Club. So we have a book club where we meet every other week, and we are reading a variety of different books that relate to equine assisted coaching. An example of some of them we've read, The Horse Leads the Way, Horse Brain, Human Brain, The Tao of Equus, and there's a whole other list that we've gone through. So this helps stay relevant. This helps our own personal growth. And so these are wonderful books to read on your own. But the really cool part is that we come together every other week and we have a discussion. So you get to learn different perspectives, things that stood out to other people. And I can tell you, we've been doing this for the last year. I just love the conversation part of it, because I get to hear different perspectives, and I hear the experience other people are having, and it's a really great discussion. So you get a 1-year subscription to that. And the other thing that we're offering as a bonus is a 1-month period in a one-on-one mentoring with Janice and I. So after the course, we do offer, for those who are interested, a 3-month mentoring program. And Janice and I were talking about what we would really like to do. After the course, you're all excited, you're ready to hit the ground running, you want to build and create, you want to be doing these sessions. And so we want to be able to support you after that with 1 month of this mentoring program. So that's one-on-one, Janice and I in your business, working with you to hit the ground running and create a very sustainable and heartfelt practice for you. Those 2 bonuses are worth over $500. So again, if you're interested in the course, go out to the website, take a look at everything that is contained in the course. There's an awful lot in there. Note there's a student application. If you're interested, fill out the student application. We get in touch with you. We have a conversation, and we move forward from there. These bonuses are yours if you sign up and register by January 15th. And we would just love to have you join us. This is a field that is growing so rapidly, and there are people looking for this type of help and support in their life and their growth and their evolution. So stay tuned. We've got another video coming out in another couple of days on another key element of the program. If you have any questions in the meantime, be sure to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. We'll see you soon.